Apparently there's a thing in society, somewhat of a trend, and it happens more often than not with people that are on the right, but I don't think it's exclusively people on the right. I would guess that this is a phenomenon that happens with probably blue collar people too, but I don't think they'd be alone. So what am I talking about? People that are a bit put off or like pretty distrusting of experts, which is kind of interesting, right? Because if you think about it, if you really want to understand an issue, it kind of makes sense to talk to somebody or listen to somebody or read a book about the subject that's written by somebody who's done a heck of a lot of study on it. But I think there's also some value in listening to people that are intellectually curious and primarily attacking the issue, I guess, in matters of would be public policy, for people that have a pretty good understanding, maybe not like an expert level understanding of the problem, and coming up with some potentially novel solutions. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily that we just go right ahead and implement that, but I think those ideas are useful to you, like, to frame sort of the discussion, having that perspective. I listen to people like Vosh, for example, who's a YouTuber, but he, like me, studied sociology, and we're both into politics, and we both care about the problems that impact everyone. And I was just listening to one of his discussions for a topic area that he hasn't really got into that much in the past, and he hadn't really studied that much, but he's looking at the problem of things like the deficit and our monetary systems, and the fact that the influence of the wealthy, like very rich people, and the capital accumulation that they have, and very wealthy corporations, and basically how the wealthy have almost like this separate monetary system that the majority of us don't really have access to. The majority of us don't just get to basically shelter a massive amount of our money and be able to draw loans off of those assets on almost like this perpetual loop without really undermining the rest of the assets. I guess they can, but because of the effects of mass wealth, after a certain point, their money just accumulates. Like they just grow and grow and grow and grow, because that's what having wealth does for you. It sort of separates you from everything else, and I think that's a bit of a problem, because when you look at the effects overall, our debts grow, and we have more money being siphoned out of the system that isn't taxed, and we're in this loop of the deficits grow, the amount of interest we have to pay grows, and because of the fact that we don't tax wealth and we don't reform our monetary system, and we don't like change the incentive structures in a way that helps ordinary Americans, like I think the reason why things might have been a little bit better in some respects in like the 50s was we had more concentration of good paying middle class jobs, and that's not just like factory jobs, like regular old jobs. Like people could work in like a grocery store and they could provide for their whole family back then. But back then the money circulated in the economy, in the local economy, more. Now a lot of money is just being extracted out of the economy and sent into this it's not a fake economy, but it's this system that's not accessible to us as a collective, and also governments. And now we have this teetering system where we keep leaning towards the people that are principally a major part of the problem. They use their money and influence. We can't make changes that would be more beneficial for everybody, including them, and it destabilizes the whole thing. Vosh was talking about the idea of something as simple as like a 2% wealth tax which Elizabeth Warren has talked about before. I can't remember what her number was, but if you did that for anything over like $10 million and like anything over your, like any assets that's, you know, outside of the basic things that you need to live, like your primary home or something, and your like maybe your primary business that is actually a real business that supports the local community, you know, jobs, and, you know, where people live and work and support local businesses and things like that. Like maybe that stuff doesn't get exposed to the 2% wealth tax. I guess it depends on how maybe the size of the company. But we got to do something, because what we have isn't working, and it feels like we're kind of blowing up the world because we fail to address the problems that we have. So I don't know. I'm interested in people's ideas, but I definitely believe we should have a wealth tax. And I definitely think that we need to reclaim the public commons. I definitely think that we all should be the benefactors of having a more productive workforce using technology. Like, we should own that technology. And I think we probably should get some kind of public dividend for the data that we are sort of forced to give up whenever we want to access these technologies to use them. I don't think getting access to those technologies, especially when they're sort of needed in order to like operate in the economy, I think we should get money back for that. And I think we ultimately should be like owning things like the user interface and the algorithms for things like, you know, the Lyft and Uber's technology. I think we should use that for mass transit and things like that. And we should be building out public transit. I think we should globalize the energy production so we can have a more planned system that's more fair, instead of it just being like a whole bunch of money is just extracted for profits. I think those are things that should be reinvested. I want to disempower capitalists, or at least like limit the places where they get to spend money. And the only way that they should be incentivized are things that actually solve real world problems for the people. So like it should be social solution industry sort of things. Like that's where we need innovation. And some of these things, I don't even know if you necessarily need innovation. You just need better public policy. But let me know what you think. We got to keep thinking about the positives, like how we want to change the world for the better, because just because fascism is here doesn't mean fascism is here always. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't fight and we shouldn't form the tools of resistance, which is fundamentally community. Strong communities kick fascism's ass. And I want to mark this in the history books for one of the most effective periods of time when people came together to kick fascism's ass, to bring and make a better society for really literally everyone in the world. You know, it's not going to happen overnight, but if we all come together and say, these are our goals, this is what we're going to do, and maybe we're going to do something like civil asset forfeiture for the people that control the means across the board for all this stuff, and just claim it for the people. And we're not saying we're going to fire everybody that's involved in these industries. People that work and do things that are important, they should get paid for their work. But I don't think we should have this group of predatory people that keeps adding to the problem and making it worse and making it harder for us to solve the problems. So, I don't know. Let me know what you think. If it sounds radical, having an understanding of the problem and the people that have contributed to that problem, I think those are the people that are radical. I think those people have weaponized their power and influence, and they're effectively responsible for many genocides, past, present, and the biggest yet to come, if we don't stop them, will be unprecedented. And they're complicit. So I don't want to be complicit. I want to talk about solutions, though. All right, thanks. Take care.